Hi, my name's Mark Ray and I'm here on behalf of WhoSampled. Of course, they are a great website which provide user-driven information with regards to who's sampling who out there in the world of music. But more importantly, I'm with three of the most fabulous musicians I would say this country has provided us with. We have Clem Cattini, and we have Les Hurdle, and a man known as the Hawk, Alan Hawkshaw, who's basically got a book out called The Champ. The boys indeed. Yeah, he has a book out called The Champ, which I haven't read yet, but I can't wait to get home if he'll let me have one. So, Alan, if you'd like to start in introducing yourself to some extent about your history. I know you're from Leeds originally. How did you first get into music?
That's the question. That's one of the reasons I wrote the book.
Right.
The most frequent question I get is, how did I get into the business? And I was a failed printer.
Right.
I was terrible at printing. And I decided, I was also very thick at school. Failed my 11 plus. And I guess I realized that music was the only asset that I had. And that was it, basically. So I got into the business in 1959. 59 it was.
Okay.
Yeah. Went professional. Left my day job, that means, and took a risk and got fired within 3 months. So I was, yeah, they fired me. And luckily, some guy, it was the summer season of Blackpool, and luckily some guy spotted a very small 4-line advert in a music paper, and it said well-known star needs a piano player, and it was Emil Ford and the Checkmates, and I applied for the job and I got that gig. The night we finished in Blackpool, I started with Emil on the Monday, so that very small advert was really what started it. So, yeah.
Excellent.
That's how I got into it.
Brilliant. And yourself, Les, tell us how you got involved with music initially.
Oh dear. Well, I'm a Berkshire boy. That's where I came from originally. Look. So I went to university when I was 11, if you can believe that, as a classical trumpet player.
Wow.
And did all that whole thing. And then I was a tool maker in a factory making airplanes and all that sort of stuff. Cut a long story short, there was a band in the area, that rock band, that didn't have a bass player, so I made a bass in the factory and joined the band. The trumpet went in the case, and that was the end of my classical trumpet career.
Right.
And I lucked out. Actually, somebody that Alan knows, a very prominent, became a very prominent songwriter, a fellow called Guy Fletcher. We were in a band together when we were kids, and he started writing songs. I did the demos as a bass player. And in fact, I met Alan because we were doing demos for a company called KPM, which a lot of you sample, right? And so consequently, we did a lot of demos, and as we did the demos for the songs, the people that produce records sometimes would say, well, who did that? And they would use us instead of the regular session guys of the day.
Because you can actually play exceedingly well in comparison to a lot of bands who are there, I imagine, are there for their looks or whatever, you know.
Yeah, we actually recorded in place of a lot of bands, and that's another thing. But I'll be frank with you, as a bass player, I haven't got a clue how to play the thing. Not a clue. I just used to play it.
Wow.
Because I made one and went to work. Simple as that.
Brilliant. And Clem, you're the drummer in the scenario, yes?
Nothing to do with the Mohawks, by the way, but I've worked with these two reprobates for years. I started off working in my old man's cafe, and a mate of mine decided that we went to see a film called Rock Around the Clock, and he said, let's form a rock and roll group. So I said, yeah, okay, so I did. Anyway, long story onwards, in 1961, I had a #1 record in England, and also the first group ever to get a #1 in America, which was Telstar. So.
Oh, it's a great track.
And then I think it's been sampled probably, is it? You should know out there, I haven't got a clue. Anyway, and then from there I went into sessions and I met these two. In actual fact, I introduced Alan to the session scene. I recommended him for some reason, I don't know why. to a lot of the contractors. And they said, "Do you know any good piano players?" I said, "No, but I know Alan Autry."
Okay, so is this the first time you've met in a while, or have you been together recently?
We bumped into each other recently in terms of the politics of what we have to deal with now, but I think as far as working as a musician is concerned, I don't think we worked together in 30 years or more, 35 years.
We'll give her a gig. Have you got one?
Yeah, and we're cheap.
Actually, it's just worth having heard Clem malign me a little bit there. In actual fact, we were sat in a tea house, a cafe in Denmark Street, right?
Oh yeah, the Gioconda.
Gioconda one day.
Then, yeah.
I'm still with the group, the Checkmates. He's now doing a lot of session with Joe Meek.
Right.
Everybody knows Joe Meek. And he said he could get me in there. So I went up to see Joe Meek, and sure enough, I find myself doing quite a lot of Joe Meek sessions. That's through Clem. So I've got a lot to thank Clem for. But it's worth also mentioning, Les was talking about his bass just earlier, that Les is also on the Grange Hill thing, Chicken Man, and which I wrote an hour before the session. So he had an hour to look at the bass part. But it's the bass part on the Chicken Man that makes it really. It's a great
It's
sound.
an amazing song that's indelibly inked in, I think, everybody's mind.
Well,
at a
you know,
certain
it took me
age.
at least 45 minutes to write that piece.
Well, yeah, often the best ones happen very fast.
And he
don't they?
played that instant. What was the device you had on that bass? Yeah, but you had a
Now you know why he plays
you had a
bass.
sound. You had a sound on the bass. What was it called?
It was a neutron.
A neutron.
Wow. Okay, so basically, one of the tracks that's the name of your book, in fact, which of course was I suppose the most famous track by the Mohawks, is The Champ. I certainly, as a DJ, have had it in my record box, or since everything went digitally, since 1996 when it was re-released by Jetstar. I believe it's the most sampled track, UK track in history. So there's got to be some pride there in being involved in that, then, chaps.
I don't know whether I would call it pride. There certainly is no money in it because we never got paid for any of that. So that's a fact. But but you know, the other titles on the album, Beat Me Till I'm Blue, Senior Thump, Rocky Mountain Roundabout, they were library titles recorded prior to that album.
Right.
And prior to The Champ being recorded. And coincidentally, Les was on that on those titles as well.
Okay.
And we have had a lot of samples because of the Mohawks on those other titles.
It says down here that the track's supposed to be played. Now, I'm wondering, there's a hidden DJ there, isn't there? Here we go. Louder. I mean, it sounds like there's an awful lot of fun going on in the session because it's an amazing track. So, do you have any memories from the session at all?
Well, it was like a lot of these sessions, and I think that was typical. Was it was done in one take, and what that means is, although we play together a lot on different sessions, the producers usually accept third or fourth takes, but sometimes you can get it in one take, and sometimes the second and third take, the oxygen disappears from it. Where in the first run through, you've got nothing to lose, so you all just mess around as it were. So I was just kidding around there. I mean, all that solo stuff, I thought, no big deal. But that's the one that was accepted.
It's incredible, and I think that's a very good lesson in music making for anybody. Always have the record button on because people are like to. You've got, and often it's the first time you ever bash at something.
There was a David Bowie session I did at the Beeb, called Bowie at the Beeb, and he wrote a piece called In the Heat of the Morning, and at the end of it, I started flying around on the organ, just for the hell of it. And it just seemed to go on for about 2 minutes. In fact, the fade was longer than the tune. So the whole ad-lib is at the end. I thought they're never going to keep it, but they actually kept it in, the whole thing.
Wow, amazing. So I've got another question here saying, did anything inspire the track itself, or did you just need the word for the chorus?
But bearing in mind that between us, we must have recorded over 8,000 or 9,000 sessions in 13 years. We used to just walk in, play the session and get the heck out of there to the next one.
Normally the excuse is drugs for rock stars, but these guys, it was working too hard.
Oh, these were sherbets in this case, yeah.
Well, no, actually, we used to do as fast as we could to get to the pub. That was the real thing.
There's a room here which I can see written down, which I'm really finding hard to believe listening to what you're saying. But someone obviously is starting to remember that Lee Scratch Perry was in the session. Is this what on earth is that? That sounds totally inappropriate.
Possibly. I mean, yeah. He could have been there.
If there was geese and little pots.
There was a lot of hangers on.
Yeah. You would have known if Lee Scratch Perry was about.
Yeah.
Okay, so obviously I knew the record having it. I also knew that it was being sampled all over, while you often think, you know, when you hear samples, that you think the artist must hear them, or their children must hear them, or they'll be driving along in the car one day and they go, hang on a minute. So obviously we've got Africa Bambaataa, DJ Shadow, Puff Daddy, all very big names to my generation. When was the very first time each of you, because if you haven't seen each other for 30 years, when did you each have that moment where you're like, that's someone else using something that I was on?
Actually, it was you guys. It was these guys.
So literally, there's so many sessions, you don't know what you were on really, because you're working so hard.
Yeah.
So it's other people bringing, that's amazing.
Well, it's one thing to talk about the amount of sessions that we were on at the time, because you were working three sessions a day.
Yeah.
For 12 years, you got to a lot of music. But the sampling is a different story. I mean, samples of samples. Now.
Yeah, oh no, yeah.
So, yeah.
But that's how culture sort of eats itself again, and it's getting faster and faster. But the thing is, strong, good ideas keep reoccurring. I mean, Here Comes the Hot Stepper. I mean, that's like almost the hook of the whole track. Is that sample, you know? So what people remember, it's the cherry in the music is the champ sample.
I suppose the paradox is the music is more popular nowadays than it was then.
Is that a big word?
Yeah, it is. I think it's something you wash your clothes with.
That's very good. But you know what? Seriously, I think the biggest record that I know of, anyway, because I've got to be honest, I don't know some of the artists that are out there nowadays. But Mary J. Blige sampled this thing in Gonna Break Through, and that was a big, well, I won't say a big hit, but it was a top 20 or top 10 all around the world.
Right.
And it's one of the few instances, and I'm going to plead with you guys, if you sample stuff, make a note of what you sample, because it's very important for you for two reasons. First off, if you make product and you sell it or you put it out to be broadcast or whatever, and your product is then sampled, you're entitled to royalties. But if you don't keep paper trails, you're not going to get it. End of pitch. But Mary J. Blige is one of the few that we've got where we're actually noted in the sleeves as actually being sampled.
Okay.
Because other than that, it's very difficult to prove that what we've been sampled in. I'll be honest, I don't know how you guys do what you do. I'm trying to do it, and I'm old and it's tough, But what you do is fantastic. Absolutely.
The sampling itself.
Oh, and how you use it. I've just found a couple of programs that will change pitch, change time, all those sorts of things, unknown to me until a year ago.
The very initial tradition of it, though, was that certainly in hip hop, it was the idea that there'd be two records, so people were doing nothing other than just keeping the records going. Right. And then as technology changed, it allowed manipulation to the point now where, as you say, you can make something that's only supposed to be a few seconds long, weeks long, and really slow it down, and you can almost manipulate it to the point where it would take someone who knew the software so well to say, that is you, but it's really slowed down and they prove it, which I'm sure is going on. Okay, so let me get back to the questions. Have you considered collaborating with some of the hip hop artists who've borrowed your musical brilliance?
Well, I about 3 years ago, I had a phone call from some guy, a clearance lawyer, who wanted to clear a piece of mine for a well-known rap guy. And so anyway, I got the details from. I didn't know who this guy was, so I rang my daughter, Kirsty. She knows all the names. I said, "Who's this JZ guy?" And it turned out to be Jay-Z, and his name is Sean Carter.
Yeah.
And he did a piece of mine that I'd written for Hank Marvin years ago, and it was on his American Gangster album, #1 track called Pray.
Yeah.
So that was probably the biggest sample I've had in the last decade. Yeah.
Congratulations, that's amazing. I mean,
I'm the oldest rap writer in the business.
I think you need to get on the mic. You've got skills. You don't need to be just doing the music, you know.
Got it?
Yeah, exactly. Okay. I mean, obviously, it's painful, this stuff, really, because, you know, the world's enjoying your art, and we're seeing the other side of it. I don't want to get too deep into it, stick with the rest of this, but we'll go back to that later. One of the most interesting uses of your track was actually an interpolation, which was by Onyx, which was actually a band that Run DMC's DJ developed. It was a #1 record in 1993. We have a clip of it here, so if you could hear that now, please. Also, something which links back to that, and it's actually just the nature of culture and music itself, because, for instance, Jamaican music, they have a very different approach to copyright and writing, which obviously can be more negative in some sense from an earning point of view, but they have rhythms, and they will have 100 artists will do the top line on one rhythm, and certain rhythms don't seem to belong to anybody because they just exist in the bedrock of their culture. And obviously somebody, you know, they don't have the same idea of ownership, which is negative for the artists, but, you know, it becomes just part of the culture. Now, I think this is what this question is going on about, because it starts with, interestingly, the Champ itself interpolates Tramp by Otis Redding and Carla Thomas, and we're going to play a clip here of that.
Tramp.
What you call me?
Tramp. You don't wear continental clothes or Stetson hats.
I'll tell you one doggone thing. It makes me feel good to know one thing. I know I'm the
And then there's another one, well, and then they're saying this is in turn interpolated by I Know I'm Losing You by The Temptations. I mean, obviously, we all know that you learn an instrument by copying music before. You don't just start in a vacuum, do you? So we're all part of the same bloodline, in essence. What are your thoughts on that?
How many days have you got? I don't know about Alan, but for me personally, without, again, getting into the business, on the one hand, it's great that people are able to produce music by doing what they do, because years ago I had to come to terms with the fact that there are youngsters out there who are making music with computers, as opposed to when we were making music, we either had to play an instrument or write the parts out and get a band and do that sort of stuff, and people obviously had synthesizers, and this sounds pathetic to you guys, but you know, synthesizers, and were doing things that we weren't able to do when we were running around. And I must be honest, I thought it was great, absolutely great, because there was this whole new picture of sound that was coming out, and I was certainly inspired by it.
When basically my knowledge of it is through drum machines, and basically the key of this change happened was that basically when Akai made the MPC 60 and EMU made the SP 1200, these were actually made to put percussion noises into them that would only be 2 seconds long. So and they'd be on pads, so you could like make drum kits up. But what they didn't realise is that you know, kids who didn't want to learn an instrument or would suddenly get a hold of them would then go and put James Brown on 45 instead of 33 and stuff, you know, a whole 4 bars of music into 2 seconds, slow it down and then loop it. And then you had the beginnings of electronic hip-hop instead of being used by records.
But that's great.
Yeah. It is great, because then you get the feel of the producer chopping the sample slightly differently, and then suddenly you've actually got a new form of music if it's done well.
Yeah.
But in business, if it's fine if you're just showing your mates and you press play in the pub and they go, that's great, but as soon as it goes to #1, there's a lot of questions need to be asked, and they do need to be answered financially, because when it's commercial, people are making money and they're stealing, aren't they? You know.
People don't realise that, a lot of people expect to have music for nothing. But what they don't realise, if the music's got for nothing, where do they get the money to make the next lot of music?
Sure.
So we need, the money's got to be there to make the records and to carry on with the music. Otherwise you're going to have no music. You're going to, I mean, most people now sit in their front rooms and make a hit record, you know, but they still need the money to produce the record,
of course,
and to get it out on the market.
And to produce it well, and there's a lot of costs involved in making good music.
Absolutely.
A&R, developing someone and losing money over a few albums at the beginning until they become brilliant.
Talking about the sampling, I was doing a session in one of the studios, and the guy said to me, funny enough, I was playing Simmons drums, you know the Simmons. And he said to me, "Oh, can you play me a few?" "Yeah, okay." "You got a few snare drums?" "Yeah, lovely, fine." About 2 weeks later, I'm back at the studio. He said, "I used your sounds on some records that I just made." Now that's sampling, but how far? And what can I prove? Say, well, excuse me, that's my sound. You know, you can't.
It's difficult, yeah. So I've got some other questions that came from users from the website, if you don't mind answering. One is simply, how many copies of the Champ album single do you still have?
Never got any.
Never got any. That would be a normal story.
I've got the original. I've actually got the original.
On 7-inch vinyl, is it, or
No. This is an album,
right.
Vinyl. Yeah.
Okay. And also, Alan, Serge Gainsbourg and Jane Birkin's Je t'aime moi non plus. Did you play on that session?
I actually didn't. That was Roger Coulomb.
Right. Okay.
But I did. I came on the scene just after that with Serge.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you played and did stuff with them.
I played on that.
Right.
I played on that one. Lovely.
Superb.
He is that old.
Excellent.
I mean, we're talking a lot of Gainsbourg stuff. I mean, I arranged 4 albums for him, at least 2 or 3 for Jane Birkin, then Isabella Gianni, then Catherine Deneuve. So there's a whole bunch of things.
Superb. That's excellent. And the next question is just about, you know, the 60s and 70s and what a time it would be. Certainly I found it an incredible connection that obviously you'd worked with the Shadows, yes, and their original version of Apache, which if I was to say what would then be one of the most used drum breaks in hip-hop history, it would be Apache, but it would be the incredible bongo band version. Do you know that version?
Yeah.
Now the arrangement on that is just amazing for break dancing.
They've got an advert on television using it.
They have, but what it is though is that it's Switch's version. Now Switch is one half of Major Lazer, who are a very cool underground electronic act. But you know, these motifs become like flags of musical genres, and certainly breakdancing, Apache is, Champ is, and I suppose in a way, it's. Have you seen footage online of people breaking to Champ and stuff in the
Breaking
Bronx?
Wind, maybe.
I mean, for what it's worth, I got to work in Europe quite a bit for all sorts of reasons about library music and all that, which Alan was involved in, and Clem come to that. But because I went to Munich, I met Giorgio Moroder and those guys, and got involved with Donna Summer and all that sort of stuff, you know, and I invented that whole disco bass line.
With the arpeggio, with the...
No, that was a synthesized thing. No, this was the octave walking bass line.
Right.
And, I mean, that's been sampled, I have no idea, a million times, you know.
In the end, it's a difficult thing you see with the Motown guys. You know, basically when you make music, your actual job at the coalface, working really hard to become brilliant, people hire you, they pay you by the hour, and unless you've got someone strong behind you saying, I want writing credit on that, you're basically being paid for your time to do
Well,
it.
Serge Gainsbourg, for instance, I turned up in Paris, in Rue de Veneux, where he lived, to routine an album that we were going to record in the next 2 weeks. And he took me out to dinner that night, and I said, you know, what's the concept for the next album? He said, Alan, I haven't written anything. He had nothing written at all.
Was that real accent?
No, I got scared because the whole musicians are booked. So what it means is that I used to sit with him, I used to improvise a couple of things. Yeah, I was collaborating without realising it. And of course, there's another area where I let it slip by because I wasn't disciplined enough to turn around and say, you know, how about a piece of the action here?
I know what Alan's saying. When I did an album, believe it or not, with the Kinks, never got credit for it. But all they came in was these, it goes like this, no parts, so I made up the drum parts.
Right.
But the thing is, I never got credit for making the drum parts up. In fact, I think We did a whole album in 2 hours, 2 sessions, and I got 18 quid. So, you know, that's what we were up against as session musicians. That's what people don't realise.
No, I mean, well, it's terrible. I think it's one of the greatest disgraces of the music industry. But, and like, if you've seen the Motown documentary, have you seen that one?
Yeah.
That's a classic example. You know fine well those guys wrote all of those tunes really within reason. You know, because they were out every night playing and making those grooves and going, how about that one we did last night? And it's like, you know, that's the writing of the song right there.
There was one wonderful thing about the era that we were in, which is a little different from the situation that you folks are in, I think, anyway, and that is that we had to work together. In other words, we'd be in the studio and somebody would come in, sometimes with just a scratch chord sheet, or a piece like with Lou Reed, for argument's sake, he would just sit there and talk to us. You'd go, what does he want? You know, no idea, no chord chart, no nothing. Just he'd sit there and look at us.
It was that Lou Reed, you said?
Yeah, oh yeah. We anyway, whatever. But the point was that we used to have fun. I mean, you know, it didn't matter if it was the Champ or whatever we were doing, or it could have been the most serious thing in the, even film dates. You know, it was fun. There was always clowns, and I must be honest, right? Alan was one of the clowns that used to break the ice all the time. When things were like not going right, he'd come up with the
He said to me on the flight to Munich, we were going to do a Donna Summer album. He said, Al, he said, you know, they don't like this joking around. Okay, great. And when we got out there, how long did it take for have them all in fits?
Oh,
about 3 hours.
No, less than.
It was just one of those things, and we turned out it was the most funniest week of
you're being a producer there, because it's the producer's job to get people comfortable. So not only were you being a writer, you're being a producer. So in other words, you know, it's not nice to hear.
Hang on, just so you all know, most of the time, the big records, the producer wasn't there. It was us.
Sure.
And we made the record, and he might pop in and go like, I don't like that, change that, or he'd pop in and go, that's great, and then he'd go back to where he was doing. He was never there.
So on a positive note, basically, I'm told here you've got an awful lot of unreleased tracks. Am I right, Alan? Is that you've got unreleased tracks?
About 3,000. I mean, it depends what you want to. I mean, the library stuff I've done, it keeps getting reissued or issued commercially. That's an ongoing thing. Yeah, there's a whole bunch of things.
Are they going to get released?
It's up to the library companies. Yeah, okay.
But so the library companies own them. Do you own any stuff yourself that you've got?
I do actually, yeah, because I did a deal with a couple of libraries that I paid for the product, and they issued it. And that meant I got a bigger royalty. So I do own it, and I do issue it. Yeah.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you this, only because you might laugh, but I'm just making a hip-hop banjo thing.
I like it.
And I got to tell you, it's pretty cool. I mean, if you ever heard synthesized hip-hop banjo, check it out.
Sounds superb. Okay, so to wrap up, gents, it's been amazing. Anything in store for the Mohawks in the future?
Trying to stay alive.
You got a drummer here.
Oh yeah, we've got a new drummer. Well,
Well,
just to mention the fact, Byron was the drummer on the original track, and he doesn't turn out anymore. His wife's not very well, and so he stays home. But under the circumstances, if we were ever to do something again, we'd drag the old guy out. You know.
I've got to say, Byron is an amazing drummer, because that's, you know, along with it was all superb what you did, but his drumming really does stand out on that track. I've got one small story that's personally, and I don't know how much of it I should let out, but I had a friend who owned a shop in Carnaby Street, and he called me up when I was living in London the first time, and he said, Mark, get yourself down here now, someone's just put hundreds of records in the street, you know, as a break digger. So I went down there, and they were all KPM, Bruton as well, the stuff that you
Music
know.
House.
And I don't know whether I sampled them or not. I may have. I don't think I might have taken the odd snare sound off Byron because he's not here. But anyway, you're geniuses, the lot of you, and thank you very much for your music. And
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And it's actually a question for you, Al. Are you familiar with a track called Rapper's Delight by Sugarhill Gang?
Sure.
Are you familiar with your relationship with that track? Okay, so let me kind of like jog your memory. Joe, can you play Rapper's Delight for a sec? Thanks. Rapper's Delight starts, and Rapper's Delight is obviously the most well-known first hip-hop record to have been released and was commercially successful and all that. Does that sound familiar at all?
That's almost my Love Deluxe riff. Here comes that sound again.
Yep, so Joe, can you play that so the audience can hear it?
Here comes that sound. Here comes that sound. Again and again, again and again, again and again. Here
So Alan, in effect, you've invented hip-hop.
comes that sound. Again and again.
You are behind the very first sample in hip-hop, really.
And if I may, I'll just tell you, I'm the bass player on that track.
Oh, really?
That's another coincidence, but Les is on the track. We recorded that at Trident, didn't we?
So it's the first true sample in hip hop.
It is, in a way, it is an interpolation, but it is...
And of course, Rapper's Delight itself has been sampled many, many times.
Absolutely.
So guess where we are in that mix, right?
Yeah, so there you go.
And I got to tell you that the two girls on that album, that's Vicky Brown and Joanne Stone.
Yeah.
Great singers, both not here now. It's incredible. Both very, very great feel, great soul, and just not around anymore. Dead, unfortunately.
Yeah, for what it's worth, I mean, I hate to say this, but a lot of folks we work with are not here. I mean, yeah, they've gone.
Maybe they are here. Maybe they are.
And we're just cutouts, actually.
I've got to tell you that nobody can predict what's going to be a hit. I mean, often the things you think are never going to make it, and things you think are going to make it just don't see the light of day. But the story I just quickly want to tell is the biggest mistake I ever made. I'm going to name drop crazy here, but like in 1962, I was sat around a table with the Beatles in Hamburg before they made it. And John Lennon knew that we'd been on TV with the Emil Ford, the guy that we actually left. And he asked me what it was like to be on television. And I can't remember what I said to him. But what I should have said to him was, if you want to be on TV, you need a good organ player in the band.
Yeah.
I missed my big opportunity, and that's a true story.
I know it's obviously there's some tough sides to it, but really you've also been blessed yourselves to have been around in what really was a totally seminal part of music history and recording history as well.
People take for granted that the Rolling Stones and the Beatles were always meant to be. But it's always the little things that just push it over the edge and give you fame. And, you know, for instance, the Beatles, a mate of ours, Mike Smith, working at Decca for Dick Rowe, he auditioned the Beatles and turned them down.
Well, that's
Okay.
Dick that turned them down.
Well, Dick would have the final say. But you think about it. If he hadn't have turned them down and took them on to Decca, they would have been amongst a whole bunch of other groups. And they wouldn't have had the benefit of George Martin, for instance.
Of course, yeah.
And George is intrinsic to those early recordings being hits. The Beatles may never have been out there.
Yeah.
Never
Incidentally, by the way, Ringo never played on the original record.
Andy
A
White.
guy called Andy White.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah.
The thing, the way that recording these days has changed to what it was in our day, we used to go in the studio. If it was wrong, you had to start it all over again. I remember doing a session with Paul and Barry Ryan. You probably don't remember them, but you remember them? 91 takes. 91 takes. And which one did they use?
The first one.
The first one, as they usually do. But I mean, the way that the recording has changed now, I mean, we used to work as a group, as a band.
Clem and I got a call one night. Can you be at Levy's studio, which was CBS,
yeah, that's right.
on Saturday night? Okay, we turned up there. What is it? The guy says it's a Georgie Fame record. Well, I said to him, well, why isn't he playing piano? He's a good pianist. He said, well, he doesn't like this record. He doesn't want it to be issued. And we've screwed up the rhythm track. They copied the whole rhythm track out again. It was Bonnie and Clyde. It came out, was issued. Massive hit.
Number one.
He still doesn't know it's me playing piano on it.
He doesn't know it's me playing. He doesn't know it's me playing drums on it. But the way the recorders, I've recently done some tracks with Paul Weller.
Okay, great.
I had to go in. I went into the studio, and all I did was overdub drums on a track that was already down. You know,
Right.
we used to work together as a And that's,
Yeah.
you know, to me, that was making music.
Well, that's why people sample now, because basically they're catching the energy that you guys created, which is completely unmakeable by computers or by programming, really.
It's a magic that the term they use is quantized, which means synchronizing, which locks a beat to a particular beat of the bar, like a click. What we had was called time, and this time is an abstract form of synchronization. We didn't think about it.
Groove.
It just happened. Nothing could be playing through a whole bar of music, but there would be a beat going on in our heads that would, you know, bring us together every time.
Well, it's like we have this thing. We had this joke called it was the A&R fader. So basically, when you were doing something, the A&R guy would come in and you know look at it and go, you know what? There's just something a little bit not right about something. I think something needs turning up. And basically, the engineer would say it's that fader which would have nothing on it. And then the A&R guy would turn up and go, yeah, that's it. That's exactly what I'm looking for. And it's about people's personal input, and then it makes them feel connected to it. And then I made that a hit record, because I turned the trumpet up, which they hadn't done. But there's music is so much about psychology, and you know, basically you had a vibe going, and that vibe comes across in the records. And I did want to get into this a little bit, and it might be a bit gear-like, but certainly the sound of the records there are a few studios around the country that try to emulate the type of equipment that you guys were using, but what do you remember as being the key bits of kit that made you sound as good as you were?
Well, probably, I mean, basically everything was analog anyway, and it was done on tape. Two things that are going to change the sound immediately, plus the empathy between us. You get a little bit of what I call it magic. Sounds pretentious, but it is a bit of magic.
Okay, all right then. Once more, gents, we could go on all night. Thank you.